Some final thoughts from the Iowa win, and then does Michigan State have more than just a chance this Saturday in Ann Arbor? Let's talk to Chase Glasser, Spartans Illustrated, about it.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your favorite part about Hate Week. That is right. The bad blood is flowing through us on this show, except Chase is one of the 4 Wolverines in my life I actually like and respect, and it'll be a cordial conversation later on. Because look, big game this upcoming weekend. First time in a long time that both teams are unranked, but that doesn't mean there's no stakes or no hatred there. We are, of course, going to talk about that game, Chase, but that win on Saturday for Michigan State was so good that we got to just pick up a few of the pieces and lament on it a little further, if you don't mind, Chase. Of course.
Oh yeah.
What a gentleman. What an esteemed, fine gentleman of a guest that we have right here, because I don't know what was better on offense, Chase. The run game, the pass game, any way you slice it. First time for Michigan State since 1989. This is a tweet from Matt Wenzel of MLive. First time since 1989, Michigan State went a whole Big Ten game without punting the football. No one does that to Iowa and Phil Parker's defense. What an extraordinary effort there. The run game, it's the best it's looked all season. Pro Football Focus had it graded their highest running output of the year, by far. And you don't even need the Pro Football Focus numbers to tell you that. Our eyeballs told us that, Chase. K'Ron Lynch-Adams, most rushing yards since week 1 against Florida Atlantic. Nathan Carter, get ready for this. First touchdown against a Power 4 team in a Spartan uniform in his 2 years here. The run game's been, Chase, it's been bad here.
Really?
It's been bad here. Yeah, he had, I think it was one against Central, maybe a few against Richmond, and then zeroed out the rest of the season. Not a great last year. And then so here we are, though. We're thriving. Aiden Childs, he looked great on the ground, too. But then you got the pass game, and we're going to specifically talk about Nick Marsh. We talked about him. Dude, we talked about him a little bit in the postgame show. Not nearly enough, though. Highest graded freshman wide receiver in the nation over the weekend. Yeah. His run blocking grade, Chase, 79.2. He was a dog in the run blocking. That was the highest on the team. 8 targets, 8 catches, 44 yards after catches with 3 missed tackles forced. Chase, after just all that rambling and just gushing about the offense, what was your biggest takeaway? Because goodness gracious, what a flip of the page for the run game that was.
Unbelievable. I mean, I think it's all of it. Right. And so with Nick Marsh, I mean, I said in the offseason, he's going to be kind of a jump ball guy, freshman wide receiver, to do too much. And I think largely he has been an athlete, but there's been some polish to his route running that has been, clearly developed and since the spring game for sure. And we can get into that, but just speaking broadly, this is what people wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
You wanted to see it all work together. You know what? Childs threw a pick. They'll get you, right?
It was not great.
It wasn't great, but
the bounce back,
the way he came back from that was excellent. And just throughout the game, the way that this offense was structured, it was clear they had a bye week, and they said, Iowa's going to come cover 2. We're going to play really disciplined. They had a lot of combo routes to the outside that they worked on that really, it has to be very precise, because in cover 2, basically you've got a corner playing zone right at the flat. You've got a linebacker who's helping, kind of reading inside to outside, helping out. And then you've got a safety over the top kind of behind you that's shaded towards the field normally. So it's those responsibilities are changing depending on who's coming into your zone, what's happening. So a lot of times they'd have somebody going in or vertical and then somebody going out under that. That throw has got to be right there on time, or else it's going to the house. And it was in this game. The pick that Childs threw, it was him trying to force a ball to a post downfield, and you didn't see somebody kind of poaching. It sucks. That'll happen. But, the exact same interception almost was thrown in the Steelers game last night. So it's like that will happen. But the way that he was able to execute underneath against cover 2, a stunning victory for our dink and dunk against Iowa, and you're going to win.
Hey, now.
But also
right.
not just that. In the turkey hole, behind the corner, underneath the safety, those throws were
money.
Awesome.
Money.
And
yes.
Michigan State has this kind of boot action comeback route, which is very tough for anybody to defend. And the way that Michigan plays their cornerbacks, especially with Will Johnson probably getting ready for the draft, that's going to be there. And Childs has shown he can make that throw, and he made that throw. It was in the second quarter, I think, to Marsh, where it was a boot action and it was a comeback, and Marsh ran it out perfectly, and the ball was right on the money. He had one of those against Ohio State too. And it's like that's going to play in the running game. I mean, people, the offensive line was within their assignments. It's inside zone can also be cutback zone, right? Where if you're able to stay on your assignments, the reason people love wide zone or inside zone is it allows the running back so much flexibility. Where you're not just trying to shoehorn into one gap, and if it doesn't work there, you have to bounce it. You've got a lot of different options. And now if you're a running back, you've got to make the right decision. But they did in this game, and just the way that symphonically it all worked together, it was excellent. And then the defense was really effective against a one-dimensional team in the first half. Bottle that, save it for next week, because you're going to want to do that again. And the way that Iowa got back in this game in the second half, throwing downfield, they were doing things that Michigan shown no capability to do. So I don't even think Iowa was doing in the second half. I don't know how scalable that is. Sure. Except for, maybe Donovan Edwards walks into a 70-yard touchdown. He does that sometimes. Made a lot of money on
Saturday against Iowa with Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that was kind of it in the second half. And it's like, Donovan Edwards made a lot of money being on the cover of NCAA 25, doing that twice against Washington. That's pretty much been it, right? So it's like, maybe that happens. But the way that Iowa got Michigan State, I don't think is scalable really in the Michigan game. So, and we'll get into all that later. But the way that this team came out against a team that, fine team, but a team that you want to beat at home, very much a peer, I think, within the conference of kind of where both teams are heading into this year, and kind of, if you want to look at, it's not fair, but in college football, it does matter what you did 100 years ago, right? And like that program pedigree, it matters. If you want to look at where Michigan State has kind of traditionally been within the Big Ten, I think Iowa is very much a peer institution. So to be able to go out and do that, it's so gratifying. And as you're watching this offense kind of scuffle against, some of the best teams in the country, just the reminder that it's not every game is going to be like this, right? And there is going to be a tomorrow, and you saw that, and it's there, and it's just really gratifying to see. And I think it's just a huge data point for this is going in the right direction. It's working. Childs is getting better. He's improving. Yeah.
Just like you said he would, though, Chase. Like let's dance on that a little bit, because we did see improvement week to week, and yes, the interception not great, but it's what we saw against Oregon and Ohio State. Like smarter with the ball, and we saw the execution at an incredibly high level on Saturdays. So it's all starting to come together. It turns out, don't throw away a kid in the trash can just because he's not excellent the first 6 games of his career.
Right. No, what you do want to do is you want to rotate 3 equally bad quarterbacks. That's a cool thing.
Does anyone do that? Wow, that's oddly specific, Chase.
Are other teams not doing this? Is this?
That seems like a winning combination right there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it's working. It's here. It's working. Yeah. The defense, they weren't perfect, but part of it is that freshman for Iowa's a player, and Cade McNamara is nothing if not can get you the ball occasionally sometimes, right? And he did. And that goal line fade, it's a heck of a catch. That's a heck of a play. Yeah. Tyler Morris ain't doing that to you, right? So it's you tip your you tip your cap, right? And that's fine. But it just Michigan State was better and they won the game. And that's just kind of gratifying to say after kind of what you saw during the middle part of this season, where it was ugly sometimes, but it wasn't because Michigan State wasn't doing things the right way. It was because it's early in the tenure and you're playing teams that are really, really, really good, who are in there we need to win now year.
Yeah, sure.
So all good. You might need a little bit of a different game plan against Michigan, and we'll get into all that, but not a whole lot of reasons not to feel good.
Absolutely. And like, I'm wondering, okay, well, how much can be done over a bye week? The blocking, shout out to Jim Maholchek, offensive line coach, and all the offensive line for being so receptive to it. Like, it just looked markedly better in the run blocking game. Hey, Locked On Spartan fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pooled over $10,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive changes, and with the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive an exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. And the best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver on the content, well, you get your money back. This week, we are supporting Jonathan Kim. I just pitched $100 to his profile on Roy, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's let Jonathan Kim or even Aiden Childs, Nick Marsh, anyone else that shined in Saturday's win over Iowa, let them feel the love. And, well, hey, guys, stay connected to your school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. And don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return on you for more info. It's Roy. Support the players, change the game. And before getting back into it with Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated, hey, speaking of Spartans Illustrated, quick little event that's going on throughout the week, also a live event on Friday. It is Rivals for a Cause. Spartans Illustrated, an MSU wonderful website, and then Blue by 90 over there at Michigan, they have come together for Rivals for a Cause to benefit the University of Michigan Health Mott Children's Hospital. Now, what can you do this week? Well, over at North Peak Brewery, over at Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor, and Jolly Pumpkin in East Lansing. Well, every time you purchase a North Peak Brewery Hail IPA, or, guys, for us, a Sparta IPA, $1 of those purchases goes towards this cause. Also, Friday at Pretzel Bell, there will be an event going on. I'm going to add the details in the YouTube description and the podcast description. But yes, Rivals for a Cause. Go on over to Jolly Pumpkin in East Lansing or Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor this week and get in on the cause. But Chase, let's flip the page now. Let's start talking about this Saturday. Massive game, a huge game for both teams. Whether the guys on the other side want to admit it or not, like, this could be the crowning moment of the season. It's kind of speaks to where both programs are, but
you're not beating Oregon or OSU, so
probably not. But look, Chase, when it comes to rivalries, when it comes to even just college football, it's kind of like talking about your own family. You know, it's like,
yeah, sure.
I could talk bad about my own family, throw some barbs, and it's fine. But the second someone says something bad about my family, like, I'll jump on you. Like, I can criticize Michigan State all I want. That's how it works. But if anyone else wants to criticize them, I'll just jump down their throat. So, Chase, I asked this respectfully. The hell is going on over at Michigan with your team? Like, how has it gotten to this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, the short-term answer is mortgaging your entire future for a national title, which is a trade that was super cool and I would make every time.
Yeah, why not?
But, sure. We'll get into that and a little bit more what it means. But I think, firstly, this is something we talk about, I think, every year, Matt, is like there's this idea that, in Michigan State play, you throw out the records, you throw out the line, nothing matters. And it's like the line, yes. I think, like, I saw a stat somewhere that Michigan State has only been favored over Michigan like 3 times since 1984 or something like that. Wow. Okay. And part of that is it's like Michigan's a brand. Michigan has a pedigree. If you are a casual college football observer, okay, Michigan's 4-3 is probably not great, but like, they coming off a national title, it's probably fine. Unless you're really intimately involved in this, I don't think you have a perspective on how truly broken this is. So it's what happens in this game is that the better team wins. And when I was at the Only Colors, went back and looked at, I think from 2001 on, where it's like every year, except for I think 2005 and 2021, the team that finished higher in the Big Ten, had a better record, kind of whatever metric of had a better season, they win this literally every single time. So it's like, was Michigan favored in 2013 or whatever? Maybe, but like you look at it retrospectively or you look at it with a little bit of context, better team won that game, right? Like that, and
I would say so.
There's a series of things like that. And I think 2005, it's like Michigan was 7-5, MSU was 8-4, where it's like, that's so marginal as to be a push. And then 2021, it's like, Michigan went on to go to the playoff, and I think it was like third in the conference, but it's like that it's the better team, the more complete team generally wins this game. And Michigan State's the better, more complete, well-coached team. So, looking at just kind of from a tactical perspective and then getting into kind of the meta, defensively, if you look at where Michigan's defensive coaches the last few years are right now, Steve Klingscale, Mike Elston are in the NFL.
Yep.
Mike McDonald is an NFL head coach. Jesse Minter has one of the better defensive performances in the NFL.
Yep.
Zach Orr, who the Michigan wanted to be their DC, I think he is the Ravens defensive coordinator.
Okay.
So it's like, I think don't quote me on this, but the Ravens defensive backs coach was a analyst at Michigan.
Gotcha.
He
Okay.
was really good at assembling those coverages. So when you look at the last couple of years with Michigan, just speaking as to what we can kind of holistically prove on the field is they changed their defense from a cover one identity under Don Brown to mixing coverages, variable fronts with Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter. And, you can see that it was successful at Michigan. It's also successful in the NFL. People are talking, Mel Kiper's talking about banning the too high look because it's freaking hard to play against.
Right.
And it's really hard when you're a college quarterback. But what it does is it requires an extremely high degree of execution. Mike Sainer, that's the other thing, is Michigan had a bunch of guys drafted last year that were very good football players. Getting into that a little bit more in a minute. Mike Sainer still is getting snaps for the Commanders as a rookie right now, not because he's an athletic specimen. It's because he's incredibly intelligent and got people in the right sets every time and was calling things out pre-snap, just formationally getting people aligned. So much of defense is alignment. Can you defeat things by alignment pre-snap? Because then that makes your job easier post-snap. You also had a guy in the secondary, Rod Moore, who started against Ohio State as a true freshman, who was supposed to kind of fill that role, who was lost with I think an ACL tear in the spring or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So you replace a lot of your secondary. You replace your linebackers. All those guys are really good. You have Will Johnson, who's a fine player, but a little bit more of an athlete than the cerebral, organizing the entire defense. You don't want your corner to be organizing the whole defense. You want that to be a safety.
That'd be tough. Yeah.
Right. And all those guys are new. Some good players in there. The defensive line is excellent. Michigan's defensive line is overpowered everybody but Texas's offensive line. It just hasn't mattered in really any game except for USC, who came in seemingly without a plan to address that. That USC win is looking a lot less impressive by the week. Michigan State has shown a number of things, I'll talk about in a little bit, where I think that they have the ability to mitigate pretty strongly Michigan's excellence on the defensive line. Rayshon Benny, who you may remember from signing Day Flip a couple of years ago.
No, of course not. No idea who you're talking about.
Very, very good for Michigan as a third defensive tackle, or critically as kind of a rotational backup to keep the Grant and Graham fresh. He was out last week, and if he's out this week, that's a big loss because you've got to put in some guys who then aren't as physically developed, as ready. And then they're coached by Wink Martindale. And a lot has been made about the fact that he has not been very good, and he has not been very good. But only one team has scored more than 25 points against Michigan, right? Okay. So it's like, it's not good, but it's largely working. Michigan's in kind of a tough spot defensively, where it's, if you spot drop Zeke Berry, the internal, nickel corner, whatever you want to call him, slot corner, is probably going to spot drop wrong and give up a 3rd and 12. So if you can't spot drop, you're going to blitz. But if you don't take away the first read behind a blitz, it doesn't really matter. And Michigan has not been overly effective at doing that. And we're talking the difference of like a half second, right? It's like, somebody is a half step wrong. This is big time college football. That's going to mean a first down. That's going to mean a chunk. It's Ernest Hausman is a little bit less athletic than Junior Colson, who's in the NFL right now, right? It's like there's just little things like that where it's just not working quite as well as it did last year. And I think largely that's personnel losses, and you don't have quite, the evil genius at defensive coordinator. You have kind of a washed up guy who couldn't get a job in the NFL. for 3 years and I think $6 million a year, which is a decision. That is an allocation of resources.
Okay.
That is one of the things you can do. So, you have that, and that's the good side of the ball. They have been able to keep Michigan in every game except the Texas game.
FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook for so many reasons. They are keeping the college football season interesting, NFL season, MLB playoffs. It's all going down at FanDuel. And guys, if you're liking what you were hearing from Chase Glasser so far, if you believe in our Spartans, right now at FanDuel, Michigan State 5.5-point underdogs. Let's say you like them straight up. That is plus 160 on the money line, and 5.5-point spread. This thing opened in like the 23-24 area in the offseason. Certainly painting a picture of where both programs are trajecting so far this season. Guys, again, make your action over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You will also get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com.
And then on offense, it's a mess.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I mean, it all starts with, it turns out JJ McCarthy was pretty good at being a quarterback. And it turns out that you couldn't just roll out any quarterback, maybe in last year's offense, but not in this offensive system, and have it succeed. You still need somebody. He was a top 10 pick. You still need somebody who can hit high leverage throws the way he did against Ohio State, against Washington, against Alabama when they needed to. It was not the focal point of the offense, but when they needed to, he was able to do that. And he also had an athletic profile where he could get out of a breaking down pocket. And he also just had the processing. Kirk Campbell's the offensive coordinator. I think he is a fine quarterbacks coach. He did a fairly good job developing McCarthy. Has brought in 2 good recruits behind McCarthy. Jaden Davis is like a middling, like almost 5-star guy. I don't follow recruiting. Somebody named Carter.
Good for you.
I'm told is good behind him. I don't know. Sure. But not in his element as an offensive coordinator. Part of it is it is the worst wide receiver group I've ever seen.
Okay.
I think part of that is when you're just running the ball for 3 years, it will, teams are not built to stop that. It can bring you a national title. It will not bring you wide receiver recruits.
Negative on that one.
Right. So, you're seeing that. Colston Loveland's a fine player, but
yeah,
get him the ball, it doesn't matter. But just the offensive design, the defense plays less than the sum of its parts, but the offense plays so much less than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
The offensive line has been getting a little bit better week by week. There's been some personnel shifts there, but it's like Michigan does not have an identity on offense. They do not really do anything well.
Gotcha.
Like 3 quarterbacks, all of them are very bad in different ways. Warren and Tuttle can't, throw the ball to the right team, and Alex Orji can't throw the ball at all. So it's like, well, Alex Orji didn't turn the ball over. That's because we were lighting drives on fire because he could not throw the ball.
Gotcha.
But teams' approaches haven't really shifted away from when Alex Orji was playing. Illinois spent the majority of that game in cover 1 or cover 0.
Okay.
And I don't think that Kirk Campbell is a great offensive coordinator. I thought that he should have built something around a quarterback read option game that makes the defense wrong. Michigan does not make the defense wrong. There is no post-snap read to try to make the defense wrong. But Michigan did have people running open against cover 1, and Tuttle wasn't throwing the ball. So you have this interesting thing with Tuttle where he has a pop gun arm, but you think he's 25. I'm 25. Okay, I've been in corporate America to different extents from 2020
season.
Yeah. I'm on my, you progress as you do, but like I've had multiple jobs since I've graduated high school or graduated college.
Your 401k is already vested. Like you've been here.
And it's like, and he's in college football still. So the thought is, well, he doesn't have a great arm. At least he knows the defense pre-snap and is putting the ball in the right place. Wrong. Bad. So it's just, you don't have a lot of good options there. I don't think Campbell is overly creative. I think that there's things you can do as far as like rollouts, moving the pockets, half field read, quarterback run game that Michigan's not doing. Donovan Edwards has not caught a pass downfield this year.
Wow.
And when you're looking at this receiving core, like that's a higher percent. Having Donovan Edwards, if you're in cover 1, having him on a wheel against the linebacker against
that's money,
versus pick Kendrick Bell who is a wide receiver that allegedly plays for Michigan.
Okay.
Like, you're going to have a better chance of success there. Michigan does not leverage their strengths well. They don't do anything well on offense, maybe running split zone, but it's like teams are going to camp on that. And you saw Michigan State against Iowa. They can do well against a one-dimensional team. I think another thing that's important to note is the punting game. Tommy Doman's been horrible. And he's been bad holding the ball too. Michigan's got a fine kicker in Dominic Zavada, but
this is great.
There's been multiple times he can't get the snap down, and because he's the holder. And if you're rolling out a 35-yard punt and your defense is on the field, the USC game, I think Michigan had 6 offensive plays in the third quarter. Right, and it's like your defense is on the field so much, they're keeping you alive. That cannot happen the entire game, right? And Michigan is just so out of their element offensively. 3rd and 5 is death for this team. There is no upside on the offense.
Gotcha.
So I don't really know what you do. I
like what I'm hearing right now. This is
great.
Great.
So it's and then you get in a field position game, and Eckley's been phenomenal. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's like there's strengths all over for Michigan State, and kind of what does this mean? I think a couple things, and I'm going to literally and figuratively put on the
let's go
Michigan alumni hat here talking about this. The idea that percolated the Michigan fan base that, well, we don't need to recruit that well because we're development U. That's not true.
Okay.
If that was true, you would not have Evan Link, who was graded out as the worst right tackle in America, starting over people who've been in the program for 3-4 years as a true freshman. That would not happen. Yeah. You would not be recruiting over guys. So I think it's Ed Warner, and I am in the bag for Ed Warner. I've been vocal about this before. He was Michigan's offensive line coach. If you remember those Michigan offensive lines, 2018, 2019, 2020 is kind of different. He was kind of on his way out by then. But like, if you remember that, it's like this idea that Michigan was not ever good before 2021. It's like the 2018, 2019, 2016 teams, those were good football teams who had really good offensive lines who could run the hell out of the ball. Mm-hmm. That was Ed Warner, right? And, Warner, his guys were the one that were the core of that offensive line. Zach Zinner, Trevor Keegan. Those were his guys who were the heartbeat of that offensive line. I have serious questions about Sherrone Moore ability to coach the offensive line the last few years. I think he's a fine run game architect. I thought he was a decent offensive coordinator, got people in the right sets, but he was working with players that largely were not his, or players that were transfers over his players. Oluwatimi was one of the best centers I've ever seen. Right? Yep. That was not his guy. They transferred him in. So you're seeing an offensive line made largely up of Sherrone Moore's guys, and he's not even there to coach them, but they're not good. This idea that Michigan develops talent. I think what it was, Michigan got old during COVID. They had a core of people, Aiden Hutchinson and a few others who really wanted to have one more year, who could have left, who stayed. You had a kind of mini culture renaissance where it's like, hey, we're going to stay. We're going to see this thing out. I think Harbaugh finally got it right, getting coordinators in, getting a very novel defensive concept in that really kind of changed the meta in some of their big rivalries. They got old in COVID and they cashed in. And if you're Michigan, you do not reload. This idea that Michigan reloads is not true. If you're Michigan, you to that extent, Michigan's always going to be talented.
Yeah, certainly.
People, right. We're 3-star U. Last year, Michigan had more 4 stars than LSU.
That's right? Flatly not true. Right.
I do not want to hear that. But like, you have certain windows: 1971, 85, 86, 92, 93, 97. 06, 07, 22, 23. If you're Michigan, you get kind of once every decade-ish, you got a shot, and you're either going to cash in or you're not. Michigan got old during COVID and they cashed in. What is preventing them from reloading? I think it starts with Jim Harbaugh. And this is where you need to understand, if you're Michigan, you're not special in the way that you experience the Jim Harbaugh experience. If you have Jim Harbaugh as your coach, a couple things are going to be true. You're going to win football games and have success. There's going to be chaos and controversy, and ultimately he will care about himself. And if Michigan people thought that they were going to be different because there were wings on their helmet and they were Michigan, that's not true. Michigan won football games, but there was chaos, there was controversy. The list of that is too long to go through. But I think, the best success that he had may well be vacated this time next year. Right. And I think that is So
he said it, not me, guys. I just want the record to show.
But it's like, there can be no greater indictment to the fact that like his brand is chaos. He wins, but there's chaos everywhere he goes. He breaks people out. And the third point, he will ultimately care about himself. The first time that Jim Harbaugh had actionable success, not, winning 10 games and beating Michigan State in 2016 or 2018 or whatever, but a championship, he immediately tried to parlay that into leaving for the NFL. Yeah. And the only reason he was coaching Michigan in 22 and 23 is because he tanked an interview that he thought he had in the bag, right?
So you get it. Okay.
I like this. There was rumblings again that he was going to go maybe the Broncos. In 23, he actually did. What you had was a coach who did not care what this year looked like because he was never going to be there. So, a lot of the assistants, they go. A lot of the players, obviously, they leave, and there's not people behind them because this year was never a concern. It was about cashing in and getting to the NFL. Again, I'm okay with that. We got a national title, but you got to understand there's a transition cost, and the transition cost is right now, Michigan State is a better program than you. And I think that needs to be a realization that is kind of soberly had. Michigan State had every excuse to not be here, right?
You think? Yeah.
You have a coach that gets fired in the way that he does. You have a coach that had, the best thing that Mel Tucker was doing in recruiting was coming in second and third for a bunch of 5-stars that were never going to come to Michigan State. All due respect.
That's unfortunately true.
He had, the guy who was one of the better defensive football coaches of the 21st century, the tail end of his tenure was losing 3 out of 4 to Michigan and leaving the program in a pretty bad place. That led to the guy who was fired, right?
Yep. You
could have gotten Pat Narduzzi, you could have gotten Mike Tressel and done that, but they didn't. They went with a program builder from a place that's tough to build a program, and they did things the right way. They took a little bit of a risk. They went outside the family, right? Michigan, I think, had to hire Sherrone Moore, but Sherrone Moore did not have to Peter Principle everybody in his staff to the positions that they are now, where they are clearly out of their element and over their heads.
Gotcha.
So it's about choices. It's about institutional choices, and kind of the summation of all of that. Michigan State has gotten better week over week. Michigan is not. Michigan State uses their strengths and leverages against their weakness. Michigan does not. This offseason for Michigan, I think, is reeks of arrogance that we can roll out the ball. Our baseline is going to be fine. We'll recruit well. We'll be fine. Your baseline is 4 wins. Everything above that needs to be earned, right? Michigan State has known this. Michigan has not.
Oh, we've lived this. Yes,
right?
Certainly.
It turns out that, Jim Harbaugh was a pretty good football coach. And, first year you go, I think his first few years were like 10 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins, COVID year. And then what happened, right? It's like, even before what happened the last 3 years with Michigan being really, really good, Michigan was generally pretty darn good. That is not a birthright. And Michigan State has known this, and I think that's why they didn't go with the safe hire. They didn't go inside the family. And I think Michigan should take notes from that. But in the immediate, in the here and now, the better team wins this football game, Matt. And Michigan State is the better football team. They're better coached. They're better organized. If Michigan wins this game, it's because they have, 4 or 5 NFL guys that, Will Johnson plays and gets 2 pick sixes, whatever, right? Like, so Donovan Edwards is, good or something. You know what I mean?
Mason Graham actually literally kills someone, which is possible. He's a very good player. So that's all the table. Right?
Like there, it could happen. But you look at the summative wholeness of these teams. Michigan State's the better team, and they're getting better. They're improving, and they should win this game. If you're Michigan, you're looking at this. Sherrone Moore is going to get another year, and he should. Like, just speaking objectively, right? Yeah. It's like you're not. I think there's been like 5 coaches that have gotten fired after their first year without like true scandal in Power 5 football since 2000 or something like that. He's going to get another year. I think he should shake up the staff. If he doesn't, then we'll be this time next year talking about Matt Campbell or whoever, right? Like, And the other alternative, and I do not pretend to know how that internal calculus works. If you have a Sherrone Moore problem, the NCAA may also take care of the Sherrone Moore problem, right?
Good point. That's right.
And I don't know, but I mean, I don't think he was set up as a fall guy. I think it may be convenient. And again, there is no outcome of the NCAA thing that would surprise me. If Michigan completely skates, I would not be surprised.
Completely agree.
If years get totally nuked, I would not be, and there's a bowl ban, I would also be like, yeah, that checks out, right? Like there's no outcome that would surprise me. But, when you're about a month and a week away from fall ball and you're looking at getting a coach, right? Or ramping up to fall ball, you're getting close to, or spring ball, and you got to hire a coach. You have Sherrone Moore, who's been endorsed by the coach that's leaving on staff. You're looking at a lot of players, Mason Graham, Colston Loveland. A lot of teams would love to have those guys, right? Yeah. You're looking at retaining that, and you're late in the cycle. He was the only real choice, but the coordinators were his choice. And looking at this quarterback room and deciding that it was okay was his choice. And if you're a Michigan fan listening to this saying there's nobody in the portal, Jordan McLeod's at Texas State, right? And is he that good? No, I don't think so. But can he throw a forward pass? I think he can, right? I'm not asking for an Aiden Childs 4.5-star quarterback that's going to revolutionize the offense. Mm-hmm. I'm asking for whoever's playing at Western Michigan right now. I don't know who's playing at Western Michigan right now. Did I take him, right? I don't know anything about Western Michigan except Tim Lester's not there anymore.
Yes, same.
So, it's multiple organ failure. And on the other hand, you have Michigan State ascendant, and you should certainly go and have a lot of fun on Friday night, because I will be surprised if we have this talk next week and Michigan State does not win. I think Michigan State should expect to win. I think they're the better team, and
I'm gonna start crying.
If they don't, I would be surprised.
It's gonna get emotional right now, folks. That's what they call letting Chase cook right there, and I'm glad he did, because if I said half the things he said, I think my home address and license plate number would be posted on the internet, because that would upset a lot of people. But hey, just like talking about your own family, it's okay if you do it. Like when Chase is talking about Michigan, it's all kosher. It comes from the heart.
My other bit, Matt, was when you were going to say what's going on with Michigan. I was going to do Dusty May's got some athletes.
Yeah, boys are cooking, right? Yeah, no handshake line altercations. Everything's looking good over there.
It's
all sunny and roses.
Recruit wings. You're allowed to do that. It's a cool thing that more and more teams are doing. Actually, is having athletes who can defend a wing. So
how about that novel concept?
It's neat.
Having a point guard that could dribble the basketball too. That's look at you guys go.
Michigan hockey might be spicy, but
sure. I'll believe you. Cool. Yeah, I got no reason not to. All right, folks.
Yeah, so
that's the legendary Chase Glasser over there. Folks, we will be back throughout the week. Of course, more Hate Me Talk is going to come. We got mailbag questions that we got to get to. Chris Castellani at the end of the week, too. It is all things from here on out. Michigan State versus Michigan, except for maybe a Cam Ward commitment for basketball, which we may or may not talk about tomorrow, depending on if he picks the right school. But guys, until then, love every single one of you. I truly mean that. Even you, Chase. That's right. Go Green, guys.
Cheers.